Good morning, and thank you all for coming. We welcome you to what may be the very last opportunity we have to hear from both of our candidates together. So I'm glad you're here, and I especially appreciate that Herb and Leslie have given us some time, 10 days out from the election, June 18th. So thank you for coming. My name is Mike Hatfield. I'm the chair of the New Kent County Democratic Committee. We're very proud to be sponsors, co-sponsors of the event today. And we are also sponsored by the historic Triangle Democrats, led by Jen Tierney, but Christine Payne, the vice chairman, is here representing them. And we are especially pleased to have as our moderator today, John McGlennon. John is a William Mary government professor, has been at William Mary since 1974. He got his bachelor's degree at Fordham and then subsequently his master's degree and his PhD at Johns Hopkins. He specializes in politics, U.S. politics, in particular Southern politics and Virginia politics. He teaches lots of classes. Maybe one of you have been in his class. But even if you haven't been in John's class, you probably know him because he's a longtime and very successful member of the James City County Board of Supervisors. She wanted to give you an applause, John. Is that okay? All right. But unless your name is Mehta or Jones, you will not be given the pop quiz today. We do hope, and I think the fact you're here today suggests that you agree with me that it's always good to have more information than less. So on this occasion, I hope you walk away knowing better who you're going to vote for if you've not already voted. And again, the deadline is June 18th. Let me just briefly talk about the rules for today. John is going to come on and ask a series of questions. After each candidate is allowed a 5-minute opening statement. This will be timed by Christine, and their answers will be limited to 2 minutes each after their opening statement. We're going to flip a coin here in just a minute and decide who gets to go first. But this will be monitored, as I said, by Christine. And then toward the end, we'll give you, members of the audience, an opportunity to ask questions. And then finally, they'll close with a 90-second elevator speech. So let me flip the coin before we get started. Who wants to call it?
You can call it.
Okay, you ready?
All right.
That's the Capitol building.
All
This
right.
is actually from Nancy Pelosi's office. It's April gave this to us. Where's April? Take credit, April. This is the U.S. seal on one side and the Capitol on the other.
All right.
So Capitol or seal?
Capital.
Capitol it is. And it came out the Capitol, so you
All
will be the
right.
first to offer your remarks. Let me just say before John takes over, this first congressional district seat has been in Republican hands for 50 years, 50 years. And the last 16 by this guy over here. And you can see how he's managed to stay in office because look at all of his accomplishments over the 16 With no further introduction, let me turn it over to John, and he will do a wonderful job. We're glad to have him.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Mike. I was just hoping nobody was doing the math when Mike mentioned that I'd started teaching in 1974. So very pleased to be with you today. This is really an important opportunity for folks to learn a little bit more about the two candidates who've stepped forward to allow us to select one to go on for the November election. This is a challenging situation. We always know that when a candidate runs for public office, it is always a tremendous burden for them and for their families. And so it's important for us to recognize that this is really an opportunity to hear from two people who've agreed to offer themselves for this election. As a result, the forum today is going to really take the tone of allowing the candidates to express to you their responses to the questions and to talk about their own qualifications and interests at the beginning of this discussion. So we're really not, it's not a debate. It's not a forum for challenging each other. It is an opportunity for us to learn about both of those candidates. And the fact that you're here today on a beautiful day when there's so many other things going on in the community really speaks to your involvement in this process. And so I'm very pleased to be a participant in this forum today. We are going to start with these 5-minute opening statements. And so we'll start with Leslie and then move on to Herb, and then we'll ask some questions and give you a chance to pick up on topics that you're interested in addressing to both candidates. Okay, so Leslie?
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you to the New Kent Dems, to the historic Triangle Dems, and to Mr. McGlennon. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I see a lot of familiar faces, so some of you know a little bit about my background, but I'm going to share that and tell you about me and my candidacy. So I am a lawyer. I've practiced for a little over 20 years. I'm the former legal director of the ACLU of Virginia. And I've done a lot of policy work as well. And I did that starting out in a kind of a personal reason. My oldest daughter passed away from a rare disease called Rett syndrome in 2021. I started working with Abigail Spanberger and other Democrats and Republicans, at first not really even having an ask, but talking about the bureaucracies that I had found myself in. My daughter had gotten denied Medicaid twice before she got Medicaid, and she was kicked out of her first daycare because they said they didn't have the resources to be able to help her. So I just started connecting with legislators on that, and it grew into being able to talk to legislators on a number of different issues in terms of healthcare affordability and accessibility. And I'm proud to say that we were able to get bipartisan support for legislation for rare disease funding year after year. And everyone I asked to sign up for it did, to co-sponsor that bill, except Rob Whitman over there. And we kept doing this work, and we kept connecting with people. And that kind of brought me more to not only the things that I was doing in my personal capacity as a mom and a caregiver working through these issues, but also the types of things that I'd been doing previously, my constitutional law work, working on advocating for reproductive freedom and making sure that we had priorities like investing in our public school education and gun safety laws, sensible things that we could come together on. And I will tell you that one of the things that has been resonating as I've gone up and down the district in all 18 counties and cities is that I can work with others across the aisle if they're willing to work with me. I have been appointed by the last two governors. I was on Governor Northam's Racial Inequity in the Law Commission, and I currently sit on Governor Youngkin's Rare Disease Council. Often, I tell people as we go up and down the district that I don't agree with everything, with a lot of things with Governor Youngkin, but when his team reached out about serving on the Rare Disease Council because of my work on the federal level and bringing that knowledge and support to the state level, I couldn't say no. And so here we are, 10 days out, 10 days before the primary. Like I said, I've been to all 18 counties and cities. We've held meet and greets. We've had fundraisers weekly. We've attended committee meetings. We have attended festivals and churches and talked to community leaders and religious leaders. We have a professional staff. We have interns, retired volunteers, and everybody in between to help with phone banking and connecting with people and knocking doors, and we've been doing a lot of that hard work ourselves too. Since I launched on January 4th, we've outraised our primary opponent 4-1 at this point during the time that I've been in the since I've launched. every currently elected official who has endorsed in this campaign has endorsed me. I will tell you a little bit about that. We have folks like Senator Locke, Senator Hashmi, Senator Rouse, Delegate Willett, former Delegate Pollard, and Representative Abigail Spanberger, who have all supported my team. We have national organizations who have supported our team, like the AAPI Victory Fund and Save Democracy, National Women's Political Caucus. We actually have an opportunity to flip this seat this time around. We can work hard and we can get it done. And I look forward to working with you in the fall. Thank you.
Herb?
Good morning, John. Thank you for doing this. I want to thank the historic Triangle Democrats for putting this together and the New Kent Democrats. First, I want to say Happy Pride Month. We must fight for everybody's right to live, work, and love who they want and treat everyone with dignity and respect. On Thursday, we commemorated the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion, and I want to pay homage to those men, those brave men who fought fascism and Nazism to save the world from tyranny. And I want to thank those of you out here who supported my campaign in 2022. If our goal is to defeat Rob Whitman in November, and I think that's what we all want to do, I submit to you I'm the best candidate to make that happen. I served 30 years in the United States Army. I'm a disabled Army veteran. I've led soldiers in peace and in war. I've served across the globe in Iraq and Afghanistan. I was awarded the Bronze Star for service in Iraq. I retired at the rank of full colonel. I was elected to the Treasurer's Office in New Kent County and served in that position for 12 years. I'm a successful business owner. I've been in business for, I think, just over 10 years. I've earned a bachelor's degree in healthcare administration from Appalachian State University. I have a master's degree in material acquisition management from Florida Institute of Technology. My wife and I have lived in the district for 31 years. We didn't just show up. We've been doing this for a long time. I'm on the board of directors for the Community Action Agency here in Williamsburg that runs the Head Start program. I'm also the treasurer for the Disabled American Veterans chapter here in the Williamsburg area. And as the treasurer, I write a check every week to help a veteran who's been evicted or has had their power cut off. I'm a charter member of our Rotary Club. I'm a member of the Providence Forest Ruitans. Governor Northam, a real governor, has endorsed my campaign. He endorsed my campaign in 22. He endorsed it again this year. I've also been endorsed by Indivisible and a number of other endorsements that I'm not going to waste my 5 minutes talking about. My values are freedom, democracy, truth, and justice. First and foremost, I will fight to save democracy. I will fight for all women to have their own autonomy to make their own decisions once I'm in Congress. In 2019, I worked very hard to get the Equal Rights Amendment ratified here in Virginia. I will fight for our children, our future, our investment. And as I said, I'm on the board of directors for the agency that's overseeing or that runs the Head Start program. I will fight for affordable, quality health care. I have the best health care in the world. Everybody should have the same health care I have. Everybody should have the same health care that our people in Congress have. I will fight for common sense gun safety laws. Most everybody that came here today drove. I think guns should be regulated like cars. You should have a license, every gun should be registered, and every gun owner should have insurance. And then looking around the room, I will absolutely fight for Social Security. There's a fallacy that Social Security is going to go away in 2035, and it's simply not true. I will fight to ensure millionaires and billionaires pay their fair share in taxes. And I will fight to fully fund the IRS. A lot of the problems that we face as a nation internally can be fixed if everybody paid their fair share and if we fully funded the IRS. How much time do I have? Okay. The only thing that can destroy the United States is us. We're the most powerful country in the world. China can't destroy us. Russia can't destroy us. The only thing that can destroy us is internally. And if we make the wrong decisions in November, our country changes forever. Our country changes forever. We're going to go the way of the Roman and the British Empire. So with that, I'm going to stop. I only have 5 minutes. I have a whole lot more I could say and would like to say, but so with that, I would love to answer any questions you all may have.
Thank you very much, Herb. So I'll be asking a few questions, and I'm going to alternate between the two candidates in terms of order.
John, just for clarity on time, the yellow means you have 30 seconds left.
Okay,
And
all
the
right.
red means you're done.
All right.
If you have anything you want to share with us, you still have like
I'm good.
7 seconds.
I'm good. I'm good.
7 seconds.
I just didn't want to chip you in.
No, that's quite all right.
And with this next round, you'll have 2 minutes for each answer. You can take the whole time, or you can end as you feel you've made the case. Let me first just mention, as Mike pointed out earlier, the 1st District has been a challenge for Democrats over the years. It was 42 years ago that I first ran for this seat in the House of Representatives. It is a challenge not just for the people running for Congress, but for Democrats generally. We haven't seen this district go for a Democrat in the presidential election recently, in the United States United States Senate, in races for the governorship. So it is a real challenge, and it means that a candidate has to be prepared to find some ways to shake things up, to make a difference in terms of the way people are looking at this election. So what I'd like to ask is for each candidate to respond to the question of what will make your campaign different? What will allow you to appeal to the electorate in a way that will bring success in this election campaign? And Herb, we'll start with you on this one.
I've already demonstrated that. We earned 43% of the vote in 2022. No one believed we'd get 30%. We earned 43%. We were outspent, I want to say 8-1 last time. Got in the race very late. I have name recognition across the district. I didn't just show up. I've been doing the work in the district for a long time. Rod Whitman knows who I am. So I've proven that that Whitman is vulnerable, and I've proven that I can flip this district.
So I told you a little bit about my background. I'm a lawyer. I've fought hard cases before, and I've worked on the policy side. I've gotten legislation passed without being in Congress. I can do a lot more in Congress. One of the things that has been mentioned is about not showing up. I just want to make sure that we understand. I've been in the district. I've lived in the same house for 10 years. I lived in Chesterfield County 20 years ago when I clerked for Justice Cleo Powell, who is the first Black woman to serve on the Virginia Supreme Court. I've been doing this work a very long time. In Virginia, across the country, constitutional issues, fighting the hard cases, and doing the work. I'm in this not to lose by less, but to win.
Okay, thank you very much. So now on this question, Leslie, we'll start with you. And in particular, this district did vote for Donald Trump in the last presidential election and in 2016 as well. So in order to win, you're going to have to attract some of those people who would have to split their tickets if they continue to vote in the same way that they have in the past. How do you approach those Trump voters in a way that would compel them to consider your candidacy?
Sure. So I will tell you that in terms of Trump voters, particularly those MAGA Republicans, there might not be so much that you can do, but there are, as we've been going up and down the district and talking to people and connecting not just with Democrats, but moderate Republicans who are looking for an alternative, it has been resonating, not just the fact that I'm a lawyer or that I've handled constitutional issues, but I know how to work across the aisle, not only in the bipartisan legislation that I've helped get passed, but also working currently in Governor Youngkin's Council for Rare Disease. And these kinds of things, talking about healthcare, particularly in rural areas, not just affordability, but accessibility. It means nothing if you can't actually get to your doctor. That has been resonating. It's been resonating in terms of investing in public school education. I am from a rural town just across the border in North Carolina, off of 95, Roanoke Rapids, if you've heard of it, a town near there. Yes, so very close to the border. Richmond was the big city for us. And I know the struggles that people face in terms of education. I went to one of the poorest schools in one of the poorest counties in North Carolina. And my last 2 years, I was at a residential high school in Durham, North Carolina. I know the vast differences between my public residential high school and the high school that I attended previously. We need to be able to fully invest in our public school education, and it shouldn't matter what zip code you're in.
Thank you very much.
John, would you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. Winning this election, you're going to have to be able to appeal to some people who voted for Donald Trump in the past. And so the question would be, how can you reach those voters in a way that compels them to consider your candidacy?
Before I was deployed to Iraq, I was the chair of the New Kent Democratic Committee. New Kent is a very red county. I was elected 3 times in a very red county. But like I said, before I was deployed to Iraq, I was the chair of the New Kent Democratic Committee. The chair of the Republican Committee had children the same age as mine. My wife was a principal of the high school, and we agreed. I called him up. His name's Mark. I said, Mark, we need to have dinner on a routine basis. And every 3 months, the chair of the New Kent Democratic Committee and myself would sit down and talk about the issues facing New Kent and the district. Approve, or whatever the proper term is. I proved that Republicans would vote for me. And we saw that in New Kent County. I think my military background and the fact that I have worked and been very successful. You don't make full colonel if you don't know what you're doing, if you can't get along with people. And one of the first things I learned is, if I'm the smartest person in the room, we're not going to be very successful. So I knew I had to count on folks on my team to help us get things done. And those folks didn't always look like me and didn't always think the same way I did. But we were able to work together and forge solutions to accomplish the missions in peacetime and in war and in business. So I've proven that folks who may be Trump supporters will vote for me.
Okay. Thank you, Herb. And we'll start with you on this question, and it really ties into the one that we've just had, which is to say, we've learned a little bit about your life experiences in terms of both candidates. Which particular characteristics of your life would you say are going to be most important in being successful in the campaign and then in Congress?
Setting goals and working to reach those goals. As a child, I knew that when I went to college, my parents weren't going to be able to afford to send, and between me and my youngest brothers, my 2 youngest brothers are twins, I knew they weren't going to be able to afford to send all 4 of us to school at the same time. So I set a goal that I was going to make sure I paid for my own college. And I did that. And when I was in college, I had a goal of playing in the NBA. In the first week of basketball practice, I realized I need to hit the books real hard. and so that's what I did. And like I said, I earned my degree in healthcare administration. And I had some friends of mine who were in ROTC. And I had a brother my brother 1 year and 10 days behind me was at Duke. And so I knew I wasn't getting any money from my parents. And so ROTC at that time paid $100 a month. $100 a month in those days was a lot of money. And that helped me get through school. And it also provided me with, I knew that when I graduated, I had a job. And it just, and joining the military provided me with the discipline and the structure that I lacked going to college. But I gained, and it just, and it's something I carried with me throughout my, throughout my entire career. Excuse me. That's all I have, John. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Herb. Leslie?
Yeah, so I guess the things that will propel me are things that I have been doing all my life and all of the things that I've been working towards. But my kind of the DNA of me and my background has been resonating as we've been going up and down the district, particularly things like having come from a small rural town. I think one of the things that a lot of folks have been saying is, well, you live in Chesterfield, you live in the suburbs. I grew up in a small town of 800, so I understand the issues. I already talked about a little bit already, healthcare affordability and accessibility, investing in public school education, and also gun safety. One of the things, coming from a small rural town is that, there are lots of proud gun owners, but you also have to have common sense with that. We need to be responsible gun owners, background checks, safe storage, all of those things that not only resonates with Democrats, but also moderate Republicans. And being a mom with reproductive freedom. And I've shared with some of you over the last few months the fact that I've had both of my girls are IVF girls. And one of the things particularly important for me is ensuring that we codify not only Roe, but codify IVF protections. And of course, being a lawyer and fighting back and taking on the hard matters and working with people and making sure that we do things in a way that we can get things done and not just trying to kind of follow a party line. I'm a proud Democrat, but yes, I'm a proud pragmatist, and I want to be able to get things done when we can get them done.
Okay, thank you. Leslie, we'll start with you on this question. And, you guys are doing a great job of anticipating some of these questions as we go along, so I'm going to modify things just a little bit and ask, in this particular case, what are the two or three items that are really most important to you to talk about in the campaign? And where do you think you can really make your mark in Congress on issues?
2 to 3 things in the campaign. Well, we know that with reproductive freedom, even in Ruby Red, Alabama, that has been something that has been resonating with people. Again, not just with Democrats, but moderate Republicans. The fact that Roe was dismantled, not only talks in terms of Roe v. Wade and the Dobbs decision, but all of the potential implications that may hold. When I started this campaign on January 4th, the Washington Post did an article about me and my background and how that has the possibility with that, along with the changed lines, to actually flip the seat this time around. And one of the things that I mentioned in that article was that with the way that Whitman has voted, particularly on Roe, really Roe-like decisions, it has been incredibly disappointing, not just for Democrats, but Republicans as well. And the implications include things like dismantling same-sex marriage or even interracial marriage. And Rob Whitman did not address that article initially, but when I said that, his team came back and said, yeah, we need to address this, and said, well, interracial marriage is the law of the land. Well, so was Roe. And we need to be just as vigilant as they have been over the last 50 years in making sure that we stand up for our values and codify Roe, codify IVF protections.
Thank you very
John,
much.
would you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure thing. In an election campaign like this, you're going to have a lot of issues that people talk about, but you're going to have to focus on a couple that are most important for the campaign. So what 2 or 3 issues would you highlight there? And then in Congress, where do you think you can have your greatest impact?
Okay, so women's rights. Right now, there's legislation in Congress called Women's Health Protection Act, HR 3755. It's been lingering in Congress since 2021. I will fight to get that legislation passed. That will codify Roe. They would take all this mess that we're dealing with women off the table. That's the first thing I would do. I would work on. Teachers. We need to pay our teachers. There's legislation right now called the Paid Teachers Act of 2023, sponsored by Bernie Sanders, that will pay teachers $60,000 a year. I would absolutely work to make sure that happens. Lastly, immigration. We had an immigration bill in 2013 with the Gang of Eight that will solve most of our immigration problems. That was Senate Bill 744. It passed in the Senate, and John Boehner was the Speaker of the House and wouldn't bring it to the floor, and it died. And we saw this happen just a few months ago with legislation in the Senate again. I will work on primarily on those 3 things, but there's a lot of work to be done. I will work for veterans. We need to fully fund our public schools. Head Start is not fully funded. We actually had to reduce the number of students that we're going to be taking care of going forward. So there's a lot of work to be done. Excuse me. But those are the 3 or 4 things that I would clearly work on.
Great, thank you very much. People get involved in politics for lots of different reasons. For many, it's a motivating issue that's out there. For some, it's a general philosophy that leads you to one party or the other, or into ongoing involvement in election campaigns. But there's also a tendency for people to be attracted by particular public officials. Somebody who is a role model, somebody who really impresses you in a way that makes you feel like you want to be part of this process. Can each of you tell me who you would identify as a public official, an elected official that you would see as a role model, and what about them makes them fit that category?
The first person that comes to mind is Nelson Mandela, because of the sacrifices that he made for his country. He's the first person, but there's more. Bernie Sanders. You can call me a Bernie brat. I actually introduced Bernie back in 2020 to Virginia. It was a great honor to meet him and spend some time with him. And then Tim Kaine. I really admire Tim. He and I are friends. We've been friends for a number of years. And of course, Mark Warner. Mark Warner, I also consider him a friend as well. So those would be a combination of those would be how I would answer that, John.
And would in any particular aspect that you would highlight in terms of the qualities that they?
Well, I mean, just with Mandela is just the sacrifices that he made for his over an extended period of time, and the fact that he was willing to put his life on the line for his country, for equality for everybody. That I admire that, and I wore the uniform for 30 years because I believe in the values of the United States of America, and I did it before, and it took me a few years to get out of that mode. When I retired, I was still trying to find a way to get back over, and but no, it was just the fact that he was willing to sacrifice for his country and for his people. I admire that the most, and that's why I try to emulate. Let me say one last thing. I'm not running for Congress for fortune, favor, or opportunity. In fact, in 2022, I had no desire to run for Congress. Folks called me and asked me to run. So, and when I decided to run, I knew a first-time candidate in 2022 was not going to be Whitman. So I committed to running again this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Leslie?
So in terms of elected officials, one of the my biggest role model is Abigail Spanberger. When she first ran in 2018, I asked her team if I could meet with her to talk about some of the issues that were important to me. At that time, my daughter had just got diagnosed with a rare disorder, and I wanted to talk to her not only about healthcare and rare disease and disability rights, but the issues that I was passionate about as an ACLU lawyer. And she met with me. It was supposed to be, I think, a 15-minute meeting, and we talked for about an hour about a lot of the issues that the district was facing and the country faced. And over the time that I've gotten to know her and work with her on legislation, on healthcare issues, it's been clear to me that she knows how to work across the aisle. She knows how to do things in a bipartisan way. She has a moderate temperament, and she knows how to also stand firm in what she believes, and work around the edges and negotiate if she needs to, but also stand firm. And those are the characteristics that I want to be able to bring to Congress. I've told you a little bit about the background that I have in working in a bipartisan way, but that's the core of why I find her so much of a great model figure, and I'm proud that she supported me in the campaign and endorsed us.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to a policy area. Senator Kaine has been very outspoken in terms of expressing the view that Congress needs to take a more active role in setting American foreign policy and making determinations about our investment of force in the world. Could you talk a little bit about your general approach to foreign policy, and in particular the way in which Congress should be involved? And after we have this question on, I'll have another one related to that.
Sure, okay. I think in terms of our role around the world, democracy is at risk in around the world and in the United States as well, as we all know, unfortunately. When we think about places like Ukraine and what Putin is trying to do, and as Mr. Jones just mentioned, D-Day the anniversary just passed. We know what happens when a dictator tries to, get more and more in Eastern Europe. Things are at stake there. Things are at stake in the Middle East. We know what's happening in the war with Israel and Hamas, and we have to be able to be that beacon of light that we used to be as the United States. We need to be able to show people around the world what a democracy can really do and what the power of the United States holds. And we can't really do that if we're faltering here in the United States. And that's what's been happening. We need to obviously work with Republicans when we can, but we also know that MAGA Republicans are not trying to work with folks. If we cannot change their opinions, we have to change their seats. And with Whitman, that's just been the case. A lot of people said that he had been a moderate. Well, we know that even if that were the case, it's not anymore. He's endorsed Trump again. He's been an election denier. And what we need to do is have someone with a strong enough voice to be able to explain that to folks and explain that, yeah, he goes to fish fries and he does all of those things, but he's not really a moderate. He shakes hands, he smiles in your face, but then he votes with the MAGA crowd.
Thank you.
Would you repeat the question, John?
Sure. Again, Senator Kaine has encouraged Congress to take on a more assertive role in setting American foreign policy and making determinations about commitment of troops and resources. What would your view be about the role that Congress should be playing in foreign affairs?
We're still the leader of the free world. We're still the beacon of light. We're the strongest nation in the history of the world. But that's not. There's no mistake about that. We must maintain a strong military. I think we must spend more. We must direct more funds to diplomacy and the State Department. But so what's going on right now with Ukraine, with Gaza, the decision we made to fund Gaza or Israel for the whole thing going in Gaza, Ukraine, Taiwan, I think that was the right thing to do. I think that diplomacy is a better option than military soldiers or U.S. soldiers, U.S. troops on the ground. If we don't stop Putin in Ukraine right now, then eventually we're going to have to. Putin's going to keep going, and it's going to cause us to have to put American boots on the ground. So, right now, the United States is we're doing great right now. People, you hear the other side talking about how we're in trouble. The United States is actually, unemployment's low. We're still the beacon of light in the world. But we have to make the right decision in November to ensure that we get the right leaders, not like this guy, in place to have the courage to make the decisions we need to ensure that we remain strong. And that's what I would do as your Congress.
Thank you. I'm going to follow up with that because both of you mentioned some hot spots around the world, Ukraine, Gaza, China and Taiwan, and realizing that we're not in a 2-minute answer going to be able to deal with a lot of the complexities of these issues. Could I just get a general sense from you about those three major areas of foreign policy? What's your position on Ukraine, American aid to Ukraine? What's your view on the Middle East crisis going on right now? And what is your view on American relations to China? And all that in 2 minutes.
I think we are holding the Ukrainians back. Anybody who knows Ukrainians, they're fierce people. And, we just gave them authorization to finally attack targets across the border in Russia. You can't fight a war with one hand tied behind your back. I think it's good that we finally passed the aid package. It's a shame that it took so long. I think that we need to continue to support Ukraine, and we need to let them do what they need to do to win. Israel, we need a two-state solution in Israel. President Biden, people are criticizing him. Netanyahu is a whole different person. He's not a puppet. He's going to do what he wants to do. But I think the president has been as aggressive as he possibly can be to try to force a ceasefire. And then China, if we weaken Ukraine, then that strengthens China to go into Taiwan. And we absolutely don't want that because your cell phones that we all have are going to cost a whole lot more money if China takes over Taiwan. So I think we have to be strong around the world, and I think in Ukraine and in Gaza and Israel, and then we have to let China know that we're not playing. That we'll smack them in the nose if we have to, and I think China understands that.
Thank you, Leslie.
I think it in some ways goes back to my previous answer about making sure that there's not only democracy, continues to be democracy in the United States, but all around the world. Let's see, Ukraine. We need to defend against Russian aggression. There are folks who will say that we need to focus on the United States, and I understand that perspective. There are a lot of things that we can do here, and we need to be able to defend democracy around the world. If Putin takes hold of Ukraine, we know he's not going to stop there. And so we need to make sure that we defend against that. China, the same principle holds true. We need to defend Taiwan against Chinese aggression and hold true to our values. And we know how China works with Russia in many aspects. It's the same kind of principle holds true. And in the Middle East, we know that we need a ceasefire. We need diplomacy. We need a two-state solution, and we need to be able to return the hostages.
Great. Thank you very much. That's good to get both of you to dealing with those very complicated issues. Here's a question that's a very practical one for those of us in the room who would want to see success in November, and that is, come primary day, one of you will have claimed the party's nomination and the other will have lost in this particular instance. I'd just like to get a clear sense of whether at this point you are you're committed to the notion that if you should not be the nominee chosen in the primary, that you would fully support the candidate who is selected by the district's voters.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That was quick. All right. Well, we're doing great today. So I will just happily accept those answers from you. 100% on both exams. And ask if we can let the audience ask a couple of questions. I would simply put down two rules. One is that whatever question you ask is a question that would be appropriately addressed by both candidates. And secondly, that this is not gotcha, that this is an opportunity for you to raise an issue that perhaps we haven't had a chance to discuss here today to this point. And I think, Leslie, we'll start with you for the first question. Who would like to ask a question? Christine, go ahead.
Well, I will then follow up with what you just mentioned. I appreciate the fact that both of you will wholeheartedly endorse each other after the primary, because somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose, and we're going to need to forge ahead. We all want Rob Whitman to lose. Everybody in this room is for that. Not many of us are interested in infighting, bickering, and back and forth. So it's divisive when we attack each other. At the end of the day, what will the both of you do to bring us all together, unite us all, whether we were supporters of Herb or Leslie, so that we can all move forward and support our nominee and get us over that finish line?
I appreciate the question. I'm first, right? Okay. So I'll tell you, it's really part of the thing that I've been doing, not only this whole campaign, but my whole career. If I am not chosen as the nominee, then I will work to make sure that we continue the fight, the focus that we have of defeating Rob Whitman, someone who is an election denier, someone who is against reproductive freedom. He does not want to invest in public school education. And in order to be able to do that, I will work to make sure that we will continue that fight. As I've mentioned before, I have been doing this kind of advocacy and working on constitutional issues my whole career. So no matter what happens on June 18th, June 19th, the work continues for me.
Thank you.
So, like I said earlier, I've been doing this for a long time. I work for Vanjie, I work for Qasim, I work for Tim, I work for Mark. I've been doing the work for a long time. I'll continue to do the work.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I wonder if you have any thoughts on how Congress can encourage better ethics in another branch of the government. Everybody knows who I'm talking about. So that we can restore some confidence in that. As just a regular citizen, I'm dismayed, I'm disappointed, and I'm concerned, and I don't feel like there's any way that I can make that known. Do you have any ideas how you could magically do that?
Well, it's not magical, and I'm one of 435. But I think that you need people who have the guts to call the Supreme Court out on what they're doing. I think we need to expand the court. I think we need to do away with lifetime appointments. There should be no lifetime appointment in the federal government. And I think it's supposed to be a checks and balances. We need to make sure that the Supreme Court has ethics that are specific, ethical, specific, and enforceable. And I think we need leaders in Congress that are going to make that happen. Right now, we don't have it. I think the president needs to step up in this regard as well.
Okay, thank you. Leslie?
In terms of the Supreme Court, I think one of the things that we really need to be able to do is focus on having Democratic leadership in the House and the Senate to be able to place ethical guidelines on. We know that there would be some pushback. We know that there will be resistance, but that's at least the first step to being able to do that. So it emphasizes the need to be able to flip this seat and a couple of more to have Democratic leadership in the House. I am not of the opinion of expanding the court, and I will tell you why. I think that I know that, we could expand the court under the Constitution, and we wouldn't have to have, this big amendment. But I think when we're particularly at a time when we're talking about ethics and talking about not making it partisan, I think it's just not the right time to be trying to expand the court. And then if we continue down this road, when you have, if Joe Biden wins, but then the next president is a Republican, then it would continue on. And so what we need to do is have safeguards, ethical safeguards, to make sure that the Supreme Court can kind of rise again to the level that it's been previously, to kind of be, there have been lots of times where there have been particular rulings that one may disagree with, but we know now that the partisanship has grown, and we need to focus on making sure that we have a president who could appoint the next Supreme Court justices, and making sure that we create these ethical boundaries.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
This lady right here had a
Yes.
question.
I was wondering, what has your campaign done? Well, what is the plan to be both engage and involve and attract younger voters?
Okay, Leslie, we'll start with you on that one.
So one of the things that we've been doing is connecting with William and Mary students. We've been connecting with VCU students up in Richmond and all across the district, and finding out what their issues are. I will tell you, particularly with some issues, there have been kind of a difference of opinion in my beliefs and some of the students, but we've had rigorous conversations, and some of those people have since joined our team as interns. I think what happens is some of the students think that, well, you're listening and you're either placating or just saying, look, I know better because I'm older. But when you have these conversations and they hear you out, even if they disagree with you on some of those issues, they find it invigorating and refreshing to just have those conversations. And I've been able to pull in those folks, not just in terms of a vote, which is good, obviously, but also in terms of helping our campaign. So we have interns, we have volunteers, we have folks phone banking and knocking doors, some of these people who I disagreed with on some of the issues. And yet they have been on our team because they know that we are passionate, we are concerned about the issues, and we want to be able to make sure we defeat Whitman in the fall.
Okay, and Herb.
I've reached out to young Democratic clubs across the district. I did that in 22, doing it this time. And we also have a very strong, the way to reach young people is social media. And so we have a very strong social media effort, a digital effort, and that's what we're doing.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So here, and then I'll go over to the side, okay?
Smiling Bob Whitman has concentrated on the post office, using it somewhat as a whipping boy to get his supporters angry. But the post office is an important institution. How would you address his complaints about it and to address the issue of improving the post office?
Okay, Herb.
Well, I think is it DeJoy? Yeah. Is that his name? Yeah, he has to go. You know, and I think we started seeing the problems when Trump appointed him, you know, however many years ago. So that's first and foremost. And I think, you know, the post office, they used to do some small banking type of stuff at post office. I think we need to bring that back. But I think it starts at the top. We need to modernize the post office. Right now, there's some legislation where the post office has to fund retirements for their employees for the next 75 years. And people are talking about, you know, the post office is losing money. Well, that's part of the reason why it's losing money, because there's a mandate for it to fund its retirees for people who haven't even been born yet. So, I think when we had Republican leadership, they put some undue restrictions on the post office. So I think there's some things we need to fix and take back, and then I think we also need a change in leadership.
Thank you, Herb. Leslie?
I agree with you in terms of using the post office in that way, but I also know that there have been problems with the post office in recent years. That has come a lot from not fully investing in funding the post office. And we know that particularly under this new leadership, that has been by design. It's squeezing out. There have been fewer offices, fewer workers, and the mail still has to be delivered. And so we need to address those issues, whether he stays in the top leadership position or not, DeJoy. But we need to focus on those issues and fully funding it, because you're right, the post office is an institution that is needed, continues to be needed, and it provides a check on things like FedEx and UPS and all of those things as well. And so we need to address those and make sure that we fully fund, we fully resource, and continue to have that great institution as it once was.
And it was somebody over, yes.
So we're actually going back to like young voters and social media. I'm probably one of 5 people in the room that care about this issue right now, but I think it is really important. And Mark Warner brought the bill to the Senate regarding TikTok specifically, and it seems silly, but a lot of young voters really care about that issue, including me. And I think the issue that a lot of folks have with it is you're targeting one company as opposed to putting regulations and protections in place across the board for our data online. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on protecting our data and not just going after one company, because that's not really the issue.
It's interesting that you brought that up, because I have been, as I hear the conversation about TikTok, I understand it to be that it is also in not just the protecting our data, but also the national security part of the issue. And so I think that is why there has been more of a focus on TikTok compared to the other social media. But you're absolutely right. Here with Facebook and Meta and all of the other entities here in the United States, they are collecting data, and we as Americans have no control over that. Europe is way ahead of us in terms of ownership of your own data and making sure you are not only aware of what they have, but kind of the parameters around what they're doing with it. And it should be a larger conversation and not just, ban TikTok. But we need to think about it in its totality, because yes, there are national security issues potentially with TikTok, but there are a lot of other issues with social media and data rights and privacy rights that need to be addressed in part of this whole conversation.
I absolutely disagree with the legislation to force TikTok to sell its ownership. I am the CEO for it, and my company, we do IT, project management, and logistics. And you do have some control. You have a lot of control over your own data. But if we're going to force TikTok to disband, then we need to break up Facebook, and we need to break up Google, and we need to break up everybody else. TikTok is one of those means that young people, that's how you communicate with young folks. And to pick on them, I simply think is wrong. And there are things that people can do as individuals to secure their information. If you go to a website and they ask you, most websites will say, confirm your cookies. Every time I go down there and I make sure only the cookies that they absolutely need. Everything else, performance and marketing, no. So, I feel you on the whole thing with TikTok. I was disappointed with Mark's legislation. I absolutely disagree with it. And I think if what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If we can do that to TikTok, let's do it to these other companies as well.
Well, I'm going to ask just one more question now, and then what I would say, let me ask the candidates if they can be around for a little bit after the forum.
I'll be around for a few minutes, but
yeah.
I have to run.
Okay. And
I believe that there's an existential question that we still have to face. We have to face on a daily basis, and that is, of course, global warming. And the states have done various things with their utility companies, and work is progressing. What I'm wondering is what you would be interested in as members of Congress in making sure that we have a world left for our grandchildren.
Okay, so I think
President Biden has set goals to reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 50% below 2005 levels by 2030, reaching 100% carbon-free electricity by 2035, and achieving zero emissions by 2050. I'm 100% in favor of what the president's doing, and I can tell you personally, we're not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk. We have solar panels on our house. We've had solar panels on our house for 4 or 5 years. All of our appliances are the most efficient appliances that you can buy. We did that because we have a 7-year-old grandson, and it's a small thing, but this is when he was 4 or 5 years old, we realized we're putting some money away for him for the future, but what else are we doing? And when he grows up and if this world's all jacked up, he can't come to us and say, Grandpa, Grandma, no, dear, we this is what we did, and we try to do some. I like that background music. And I think that electric cars, data centers that people are criticizing. I think right now there's a requirement that they be renewable energy. All new data centers have to run on renewable energy. We need leaders who are going to be serious about making those changes. And we can do it. We need to invest in hydrogen technology. There's all kinds of things we need to do and we can do.
I think it's great to have individual responsibility, but companies and the federal government need to do this. We can talk about having, say, electric vehicles, but if you don't have the infrastructure to be able to take your road trip and there are no, plug-ins along the way, how realistic is that going to be? So yes, we need to continue doing the individual things that we've been doing. Those things are helping, but the federal government needs to continue to step in. I am encouraged by the infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act. They're creating clean energy jobs. And we just need to take those kinds of things further. Rob Whitman says that he has a health background, he has a science background, and yes, he talks about the Chesapeake Bay, which is absolutely important, but that's kind of where it stops for him. We need to focus on things like good air quality and water quality, and even the severe weather. He talks a lot about the military as well. We know that with these bases, it's important to consider severe weather and the rising sea levels, because they will have to be moved if we don't. So it's very important that we think about this on a statewide, federal and level, and not just kind of individual responsibility. Because if we focus on that, we've been doing that for a long time, and there's some people who are doing great work on the individual level, but we need to be able to have structures in place. That's what the federal government does best.
Okay, well, we are now at the point where we're going to come to the conclusion of our forum. We asked each of the candidates to be prepared to give their 90-second elevator speech. We know that voters are always stressed for time. Many folks, unlike those of you in the room today, are not really interested in talking about politics for very long, and so you've got to get that message across to them very succinctly and very effectively. And so each of the candidates will have 90 seconds to give their elevator speech, the wrap-up of why you should care that I'm elected to Congress. And I think, Leslie,
We're starting with it?
Mhm.
Okay. So if you look at my website, you'll see endorsements from people like Representative Abigail Spanberger and Senator Locke and Senator Hashmi and Delegate Simons. There's a reason that they have supported my campaign. You'll see that, as I mentioned before, every single currently elected official in Virginia who has endorsed me. I have done the work my entire career, 20 years, fighting for civil rights, fighting for the constitutional rights of folks, even when I didn't agree with their underlying beliefs. But you fight for the principles, you fight for the Constitution, and you fight for people even when it's difficult. That's what being a leader is, and that's what it means to be principled. I have worked in this space as a mom, as a lawyer, as an advocate. As I said before, no matter what happens on June 18th, the work will continue for me on June 19th. I ask for your vote. I ask for you to support my campaign, and we can move forward. And this time around, we can actually beat Rob Whitman.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Herb.
This campaign is about electability. This primary is about electability. Who can beat Rob Whitman in November? I'm the only one that can do that. It's about electability. I have name recognition across the district. I have momentum. People are tired of Donald Trump. Let me say Donald T. Rump. People are tired of them. We have a presidential race this year. Tim Kaine is a very popular senator. And like I said, Tim and I are friends. I'm going to ride Tim's coattail all the way to the end. We have a much more structured and sophisticated campaign structure. The last thing I want to say is we just celebrated or commemorated the 80th anniversary of D-Day. I know. Come on now. Come on, Christine. A lot of folks say to me, thank you for your service. And the best way to thank a veterans for their service, you know what the best way to thank a vet for their service? Is to vote. People put their lives on the line for your rights. So if you want to thank a vet, please go out and vote. And if we want to win in November, vote for me.
Thank you very much to both of you for the excellent presentations today. I think there's no question but that folks have come away from this meeting much more well-informed to make their choices, tough choices on June 18th. And appreciate all the hard work that was put into this effort by the New Kent Democratic Committee with Mike Hatfield and the Historic Triangle Democrats with Christine, Mary M.K. Sizemore, and Jen Tierney. And thank you all very much once again. We appreciate it.